Now, I think it's worthwhile, boxing fans, for us to take a look back at the whole Fury versus Usyk saga that took place last year as we're entering into the new year. The first fight was an absolutely outstanding affair between these two wonderful, wonderful fighters. I don't really like, and other boxing fans worldwide don't really like what some of the antics Fury does outside of the ring. There's other YouTubers and podcasters have spoken about it. Some, I guess, the Fury fanboys, they love it a lot more, but I certainly don't. I find it very obnoxious and, quite frankly, petty and childish at times. Especially with all his ridiculous name calling. But he's a fantastic fighter in the ring. There's absolutely no question about it. Usyk as well, former cruiserweight champion of the world, achieved everything he had. He did achieved everything he did in the cruiserweight division, unified the titles, and then went on to defend them against Tony Bellew, already a Hall of Famer, before he stepped up to the heavyweight division. But looking back at their saga, that first fight for me was undoubtedly fight of the year, for numerous reasons. First of all, it was for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. The last time this was contested was 25 years ago, when Lennox Lewis unified the titles and became undisputed. But what was even more amazing is the constant swings and fluctuations that occurred in this contest. Usyk, I felt, got off to a very fast start. He was pushing Tyson Fury back, putting him on his back foot. And I think this surprised Tyson a bit. But, Tyson Fury was doing, the usual showboating. But nevertheless, he was being forced to the back foot by Usyk, as opposed to him choosing to fight on the back foot, which he says. And as a result of that front foot pressure, those stabbing jabs to the body, I gave the first 2 rounds to Usyk. The other reason why I gave the first 2 rounds to Usyk is because, yes, he landed those stabbing jabs to the body, but he also followed it up with a big left hand upstairs in round 1, and then another big left hand again at the start of round 2. Fury, I distinctly remember, hitting his head with the gloves, trying to con the judges like he didn't hit me, but oh yes, he did. He got Fury's attention very early on, and he won the first 2 rounds. However, Tyson started to take control in the middle rounds. Everyone remembers the sort of famous uppercut in round 6, which I thought hurt Usyk. Fury was starting to get into his rhythm, landing awkward shots, lead sort of left uppercut coming forwards. Landed another uppercut in round 7, nearly knocking Usyk's gum shield out of his mouth. After 7 rounds, I had Tyson Fury up 5 rounds to 2. You can make a case for 4-3 if you decide to give round 7 for Usyk, which I can understand because he did finish round 7 stronger. But I scored round 7 for Tyson Fury because he landed the more impactful shot in that round. However, if others scored the round 7 for Usyk, I wouldn't really have an argument against that, because the fact of the matter is he did finish round 7 a lot stronger. So after 7 rounds, I had it. Tyson Fury up 5 rounds to 2. I thought he was going to run away with the fight. How Usyk came back is nothing short of phenomenal. You see, a lot of the casual fans watching this contest would see round 9 being the game changer round, because obviously that's the round that Alexander Usyk scored the knockdown. However, that wasn't really the turning point of the contest. The turning point was in round number 8. Usyk kissed the cross between rounds 7 and 8. And obviously, the Fury camp had a lot to say about that. And, he wasn't allowed the cross in the rematch. Usyk was allowed to kiss the cross at the start of the rematch, but he wasn't allowed to have it in the corner. But in the first fight, going back to the first fight, he kissed the cross between rounds 7 and 8. And he came out with just a bit more of a menacing, almost godlike intent, that sort of urgency, because he was behind on my scorecard 5 rounds to 2, and also, more importantly, he was behind on all 3 judges' scorecard. So he came, he started that round with sort of menacing, not menacing, but just I think a greater urgency to get a move on. I think he knew deep down that he was behind in the fight. And boy, did he show up in that round. Usyk gets Fury onto the ropes. Fury lands a good body shot, gets off the ropes. Fury then leads with the right hand. Fury is now in Usyk's punching space. Usyk fires back with a 1-2 combo, followed by finishing off with a beautiful left cross. Even Fury acknowledged that. So yeah, good shot. He didn't say the words good shot, but you could tell that's him nodding his head in approval. That's what he meant. He then lands another left hand with a minute left, Alexander Usyk. And I think this is one of the many reasons what makes him such a special fighter, because of the variation he has in his left hand. He can throw it straight. He can throw it overhand. A great overhand left, which he did against, which evidently he did against Fury in the rematch when Fury turned southpaw. And he can land the looper as well. And with a minute left in round 8, he landed that looper of a shot, which I think is a shot that broke through Fury's nose. And then towards the end of the round, with 20 seconds left, Usyk lands a big right hook and further bloodies Tyson Fury's nose. That was the game-changing round. Now my scorecard is 5 rounds to 3. Round 9 I'm not going to speak about in too much detail. Everyone saw what happened in round 9. There is no doubt in my mind that the referee absolutely saved Tyson Fury there. He was completely out on his feet. To this day, I will never understand why the referee jumped in, because Tyson Fury's hands did not touch the canvas. So why would the referee jump in unless it's going to stop the fight? I don't know. And then rounds 10 and 11, again, were clear Usyk rounds for me. Round 12, some had it, the judges, all three judges scored that round to Fury, but I scored it for Usyk. I thought he landed the better shots with his left hand and a sort of a jumping right hook. Fury finished the round strong, but I thought that Usyk did the better work throughout the course of the 3 minutes of the round. But if others had that round to score that round to Tyson Fury, I wouldn't really have arguments. In conclusion, I scored the first contest 115-112, with rounds 7 and 12 being swing rounds. Round 7 I scored for Tyson Fury. Round 12 I scored for Alexander Usyk. Even if I were to reverse those swing rounds, so give round 7 to Usyk and then give round 12 back to Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk still wins the contest 115-112. Even if I were to ignore all the swing rounds given to Fury and simply reverse the swing rounds given to Usyk back to Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk still wins 114-113 on my scorecard. I think either 115-112 or 114-113 are acceptable scorecards for me. And Alexander Usyk was the clear winner. Fury, we cried. Robbery said ridiculous things. Fight was too easy for him, which even made Usyk laugh in one of the Sky Sports interviews he gave. I think a month or two after their first fight. But boxing fans, myself, boxing fans worldwide, even the Fury fanboy club understand deep down that Alexander Usyk clearly, although close to the scorecards, won the first contest. Now, before I discuss the rematch, I just want to touch base on the psychology of both fighters. Normally in the past, when two highly skilled opponents match up against the other, I've always generally favoured the fighter who says less and is a man of few words. Because, as my father always used to tell me when I was young growing up, son, don't tell me, show me. Actions speak louder than words. And I think that slogan very much applies to the sport of boxing, and I think just combat sports generally, because when you have two highly skilled operators matched against one another, I pretty much agree with what Teddy Atlas says, that in that dynamic, when you have two highly skilled fighters about to fight one another, boxing or an MMA contest becomes more about the mental side of things. So becomes more 75%, 80%, I would say, a mental battle, and 20% physical. Especially when you have two opponents evenly matched. And so, when I look at Tyson Fury's behaviour in his previous fights against Dillian Whyte and Derek Chisora, compared to how he behaved in the build-up to the first fight against Usyk, I mean, we're talking apples and oranges here with his behaviour. Unless my memory has failed me, I largely remember Tyson Fury being relatively quiet in the build up to the first Dillian White fight and the fight against Derek Chisora. He wasn't particularly irate, angry, shouting all sorts of obscenities and profanities towards his opponents. But against Usyk, man, he was so much more aggressive than he has been for other opponents in the past. And I think that was a clear tell there that the man was, to me anyway, very nervous in the build up to the first Usyk fight. You know, shouting all sorts of profanities, calling him ugly rabbit, said the C word a few times in the face off, in their face off. And even when they did face off with one another, you notice how Fury would just go into headbutt Usyk, although it's not like a full blown headbutt, but he'll always put his head next to Usyk's face, or he'll put his head next to Usyk's head to try and gauge a response from Usyk. And I think the reason why Tyson Fury decided to do that is because I think he deep down knows that he can't beat Usyk in a stare-off. And I think this was proven in their 11-minute stare-off with one another in the build-up to their rematch. So, in the rematch, in the build-up to the rematch, Usyk still stayed his same usual self. Calm, poised, stoic. He reminds me of what AJ would often say in interviews when he was heavyweight champion of the world, which was, don't let success get to your head. At the same time, don't let failures get to your heart. And I think that sort of slogan, it seems Usyk very much lives by, because he just seems an incredibly level-headed character. Even when he is being his amusing self at times. So Usyk's behavior, I feel, was more or less consistent in the build up to the first and second fights. Fury's behavior was very different until that famous the final pre-fight press conference. He was very quiet in his training camp for the rematch. He didn't allow any media access. Usyk, on the other hand, did. And when I first saw Tyson Fury on fight week with his long beard, he definitely had a lot more of a meaner aura, a meaner sort of much more serious look to him. I believe him when he says he hadn't spoken to his wife in 3 months, because he was just in that warrior's sort of beast mode mentality. And he, like Usyk, became a man of few words, saying things like, giving very simple answers like smash and damage, a lot of pain and hurt, damage, hurt. And I thought, okay, maybe we are going to get a 6-round shootout after all. Certainly because Tyson Fury, to most people's eyes, looked far bigger than he did in the first fight. And he did. He weighed in at 281 pounds. And I thought for a while, Fury sort of was giving off that demeanor with the words he was saying, with how little he was saying actually, but with how little he was saying, with that meaner aura about him, that meaner sort of warrior, sort of beast mode mentality etched all over his face, and the fact that he wasn't saying that much in the fight week, I thought, okay, he's going to go for a 6-round shootout here, in the sense that he's going to look to use his size to his advantage to try and take Alexander Usyk out in the first 6 rounds. And if he can't do it, well then, that's the that's the card he played at the end of the day, and he just accepts that he won't beat Usyk over a 12-round decision. I thought he was going to do that because he was saying all the right things and he was behaving how I wanted him to behave. Unfortunately, then the final pre-fight press conference happened, where Tyson Fury unfortunately reverted back to type, and I immediately knew from that face-off, he's got to Usyk. And how I knew is that during their 11-minute face-off, both men were calm, poised, just staring into each other's eyes. No one really flinched or gave an inch. And then around the 8.5-9 minute mark, Fury absolutely lost it and reverted back to type with his profanities, hurling all sorts of obscenities, saying the C word multiple times, telling Usyk how he got lucky in the first fight and he was gifted a decision, swearing some more. And when Fury really started to go off and swear constantly and continuously to Usyk, the face-off there pretty much, ended at that point. But the fact that Fury couldn't just quietly walk away after that lengthy stare down was very telling. What was even more telling was that on one hand you had Fury shouting all sorts of obscenities and profanities, as was the case in the build-up to their first contest. Usyk, on the other hand, just stared at him, and I believe, based on all the video footage I've seen, did not swear once back to Tyson Fury. That is a sign of supreme confidence. Logically, why swear if you know you're much better than your opponent? If you know you're going to beat your opponent, if you know you're confident, there's no need to swear at all to your opponent, in my opinion. And Usyk was just staring back at Tyson Fury when Fury couldn't help himself and was swearing continuously, and just kept saying things like, and Usyk just kept saying things like no, 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 back to Tyson. And also, he kept repeating the mantra, Alexander Usyk, don't be afraid. I will not leave you alone again. And he kept saying that over and over again in their face-off. And you can tell that was really riling up Tyson and Fury and say, no, you don't be afraid. This time you're going to get butchered. This time I'm going to F you up and this and that. And I thought that was that pre-fight press conference to me was very telling. And from that point onwards, I just thought, yeah, advantage Usyk here. Tyson's unfortunately reverted back to type. Funnily enough, after their weigh-in, Fury didn't even bother with that same lengthy face-off again. In fact, I believe it was only 3 seconds before he turned away from Usyk's eyes. And I think that's clearly because he knows deep down that he can't beat Alexander Usyk in a stare down. The man is far too mentally tough. Tyson Fury has got to many opponents in the past, like Klitschko and Wilder, but he failed to do it against Alexander Usyk. So that was my take on the psychology of both fighters in the build-up to their first and second contests. Now, the rematch proved to be another competitive affair. I'll tell you guys how I scored it round by round and what were sort of the telling shots as to why I gave the round to either fighter. Essentially, the rounds were close. There were quite a few swing rounds on my scorecard, but ultimately I had one clear winner in the end, knowing that if I did the same thing with the first fight and I reversed those swing rounds back the other way, I still had one clear winner from the rematch. So, ding ding, round 1 starts, and I think it's a bit of a nothing round, really, to be honest with you. I scored the round for Usyk, the first round for Usyk, because I felt that he sort of had the slightly busier. I thought Alexander Usyk was slightly busier with his body work. Although Fury landed a good right hand, but ultimately I felt Usyk did enough to win round 1 with his slightly busier bodywork. However, if others scored it for Fury, I wouldn't have any complaints because it was a bit of a nothing round, really, to be honest with you. And Fury did some good things in terms of controlling the range with his jab. Round 2 begins, and again, this was another swing round for me. So Usyk comes out firing and lands a straight left, and definitely starts getting very busy to the body, as opposed to only being slightly busy to the body in the first round. Now he's definitely being very busy in terms of the body shots he's landing on Tyson Fury on top of the straight left hand he landed at the start of the round. However, towards the end of round 2, when I felt Alexander Usyk was clearly winning round 2, Tyson Fury lands a peach of a right hand. And I certainly felt that was the most impactful shot of the round. And so I scored round 2 to Tyson Fury. But I wouldn't have any complaints or arguments if there are others who scored round 2 the other way to Usyk, because he definitely was a lot busier to Fury's body and landed a straight left hand himself at the start of round 2. Round 3, I scored it for Usyk. Again, I thought he was busier with his body work, with the body shots he was landing on Tyson Fury, who was massive in the ring, looked absolutely huge. And it was just a bigger body for Usyk to target. Round 4 was a clear Usyk round, landing 2 big left hands. First left hand was an overhand left when Fury was in his southpaw stance, which I don't think did him any favours in the fight, to be honest with you. And then that landed another overhand left on top of that. Fury came back strong with his own right hand, but I thought that was a clear Usyk round. Round 5, I feel, just like round 4 was a clear Usyk round, I felt round 5 was a clear Fury round. He landed a big left uppercut and was landing some good ripping body shots, to Usyk. And so that was a clear Fury round with that left uppercut and great body work on Usyk. Round 6, it was a clear Usyk round for me. He lands a big left hand on Fury's forehead, rocking him back, and becomes a bit disorientated. And then Usyk follows up with another left hand during a 3-punch combination. So yeah, round 6 was a clear Usyk round for me. Sorry. Round 7, I scored it a swing round for Alexander Usyk, but the more I think about round 7, in hindsight, the less I think it was a swing round, because Usyk landed good body shots, combinations upstairs. I thought the left hand he landed towards the end of round 7 with a minute left was the best punch of the round. Although Fury did land a right hand of his own, but I thought Usyk's left hand was better. So I scored it a swing round to Usyk because Fury landed a good right hand of his own in round 7. But the more I think about it, the less I'm inclined to see that as a swing round, but rather a more of a clearer round for Alexander Usyk. Round 8, I scored it for Usyk again, with his great combinations to Fury's, let's just say, very large body. Round 9, I scored round 9 for Tyson Fury, but upon reflection, I do see round 9 being more of a swing round than round number 7, which, upon reflection, I think is more of a clearer Usyk round as opposed to a swing round. But round 9, I scored it for Tyson Fury, but I understand round 9 being actually more of a swing round than round number 7. Reason for this is that Fury was definitely the more busier man for the first, say, 2.5 minutes of the round. However, Usyk finished round 9 very strong, by landing a combination upstairs with his right hook, followed by another big left hand as Fury was moving backwards. So I scored round 9 for Tyson Fury, but I understand if others gave that round to Usyk because he actually finished the round far stronger than Tyson Fury. Round 10 I scored it for Tyson Fury. I thought he was certainly the busier man as far as his inside work is concerned. I thought he was landing some good shots to Usyk's body and then smothering him after landing his body shots on Usyk. So I scored round 10 for Fury. Round 11 was, I wrote in my notes, dominance. Clear dominance for Alexander Usyk. 3 big left hands thrown. The middle left hand thrown. The middle left hand landed, or the middle left hand that landed on Tyson Fury. I mean, I say 3 left hands thrown, but what I meant to say was 3 big left hands landed on Tyson Fury. The middle left hand being in a very beautiful cat-like combination. Left hand to Usyk throws a left hand to Tyson's body, followed by a throwaway right hook, and then another big left hand upstairs, rocking Tyson's chin sideways. He lands another big left hand before that combination, and another straight left hand after Usyk lands that combination, that cat-like combination, which clearly stunned Tyson Fury. I actually think in that moment when he lands that sort of final straight left hand of the round, when he had Tyson against the ropes after he lands that cat-like combination, instead of throwing it straight, I think Tyson was open for the looper, and if Usyk had thrown that looper as opposed to landing the straight left hand, I think he would have potentially hurt Tyson Fury. So it's the left hand I'm talking about, folks. After Usyk lands that cat-like combination. Round 12, Fury worked hard during that round. He really tried to put it on Alexander Usyk by turning up his work rate, but ultimately I scored that round a clear round for Alexander Usyk because of combinations landed in the first minute by Usyk. Then he lands a left hand with a minute to go, followed by 2 further left hands flush on Fury's chin, followed by a left uppercut. And then Usyk landed another big left hand right at the end of the round when the bell rang, signalling the end of the fight. Usyk landed a big left hand right towards the end of round 12. So overall, I scored the contest 116-112 in favour of Alexander Usyk. I felt he was the clear winner in that fight. I originally had 4 swing rounds in that contest, with 1, 2, 7 and 9 being swing rounds, but upon reflection, round 7, the more I think about it, is less of a swing round and more of a clear round for Usyk. So I only have rounds 1, 2 and 9 being swing rounds. So even if I were to reverse those swing rounds the other way, So score 1, 2, and 9 the other way. Usyk actually then wins by an even wider margin, 117, 111, because remember I scored round 1 for Usyk, but then rounds 2 and 9 in favour of Tyson Fury. So even if I were to reverse the swing rounds the other way, Usyk then wins by an even bigger margin of 117, 111. So I think any scorecard from 116, 112 to 117, 111 is acceptable as far as their rematch was concerned. I felt Alexander Usyk was the clear winner. If you're being very, very, very generous to Tyson Fury and giving him every benefit of the doubt, I can potentially see a 115, 113. However, I think 116, 112, 117, 111 is more of an accurate reflection in terms of what happened throughout the course of their second encounter. Upon reflection of both contests, I felt, and I know this is going to sound controversial, because there are those, especially in the mainstream boxing world, and certainly the Fury fans would say, oh well, Tyson put up a much better showing in the rematch than he did in the first fight. And don't get me wrong, there were some very tight competitive rounds in the rematch, but I felt Tyson actually performed better in their first encounter, because the rounds that Tyson Fury won in their first fight were clear wins for Tyson Fury. I mean, there's no debating it whatsoever. Whereas the rounds Tyson Fury won in the rematch, especially with round 2 and 9 for as an example, because I scored them both for Tyson Fury, both of those rounds for Tyson Fury, those weren't clear rounds for Tyson Fury, which is why I put the letter S next to round 2 and 9, because it was swing rounds in my opinion. So even the rounds that Tyson Fury won in their rematch weren't as clear compared to the rounds Tyson won in their first fight. I mean, I thought rounds 3 to 6 in the first fight, there was no debating those rounds. The only swing rounds I had in the first fight was rounds 7 and 12. And the rematch, I had rounds 1, 2, and 9 being swing rounds. But anyway, the right man won in both fights. In both encounters, the right man won. And Alexander Usyk, in my opinion, will go down as a generational great. I mean, he's certainly the greatest heavyweight of this generation. Whether or not he is an all-time great, I think is a discussion warranted after his career comes to a close. But it's certainly a discussion worth having. I would like to see Alexander Usyk retire. I don't think he has anything else left to prove in the sport or boxing. I think, as most fight fans worldwide would agree with me, he has completed the game. And I think most fight fans listening in agree with my point of view that Alexander Usyk has got nothing left to prove in this sport. And he should retire now, sooner rather than later, because boxing, as Alexander Usyk I'm sure knows and understands only too well, is a very brutal, unforgiving blood business. And my worry is for his legacy not to mimic that of the great Roy Jones Jr., who I thought was the fighter of the decade in the 90s. But unfortunately, he stayed around the sport a little too long. I would hate for Alexander Usyk to do the same thing. Given everything he has achieved in his sport, Alexander Usyk, if he were to continue, I would say, please don't. Not that he can hear me, but, I would hate to see him have any more than 2 to 3 fights in his career. Because like I said, he's got nothing left to prove, and if he is going to continue, I wouldn't want him to have more than 3 more fights. And I think for those 2 or 3 fights, if he is to continue, Alexander Usyk, he has every right to ask the money that he deserves, whether it be 100 million, 120 million, 150 million guaranteed per fight. Because the fact of the matter is, he doesn't need boxing anymore. Usyk has achieved everything. So I think it's in his every right to ask for the demands. I think it's in his every right to ask for the financial demands that I'm sure his team will ask from his excellency in order for the fans to see him continue to fight. And I think if Usyk wishes to continue, His Excellency should honour Usyk's financial demands, but on the condition that Mr. Turki Al Sheikh chooses the opponent. I can certainly see that scenario playing out, where His Excellency accepts Alexander Usyk's financial demands to continue fighting, but Turkey then chooses the opponent for him. And I think if that were to happen, and they were to come to this sort of arrangement, I certainly see a Dubois rematch in the works later down the line. If he's able to get past Joseph Parker, that's not going to be an easy fight for Daniel Dubois. Thought that was a bit disrespectful, him getting into the ring after Usyk won the rematch. If that was me, I would say to him, don't you have a fight coming up soon yourself? But anyway, I certainly see the Dubois rematch happening in the future if he's able to get past Joseph Parker. I think the winner of Zhang versus Kabayal should fight who, in my opinion, unquestionably is now the most avoided fighter in the heavyweight division, who's in the Who Needs Him club, which is Martin Bakole. So I think the winner of Kabayal Zhang should absolutely fight the winner of should absolutely fight Martin Bakoli, ideally on the Usyk Dubois or Usyk Parker, depending on who wins that undercard. I think the winner of Kabayal Zhang should absolutely fight Martin Bakoli, and the winner of that contest should absolutely then be the undisputed official mandatory challenger for all the heavyweight belts. Because I think the winner of those three, essentially, Kabayal, Zhang, Bakoli, whoever comes out on top, I think His Excellency should enforce Usyk's hand if he's still around, if he still chooses to be an active fighter, to then face Bakoli after Dubois. And then the third fight, who knows? Let's see how he does in the next two contests. If he decides to stick around Usyk, which I hope he doesn't, but as the great Jim Lampley often says, when money talks, nobody walks. For Tyson Fury, well, he's still crying out robbery like he did in the first fight, throwing his toys out the pram, not even sticking around to do a post-fight interview. He's still crying robbery after the rematch, even though I thought Usyk won the rematch a lot more clearly than even the first fight. However, Fury is still saying that he got Larry Holmes'd again in those two fights, which I thought, Tyson Fury's baby doesn't really surprise me at this point. I thought he would cry out robbery, and if the decision didn't go his way, and surprise, surprise, he did. To be fair to Tyson, though, I will say something in his defense, which is that unlike Deontay Wilder, yes, I think Tyson Fury can be a bit of a delusional fool at times, but he's nowhere near as delusional as Deontay Wilder. I say Tyson Fury is a delusional fool because he still can't accept the fact that he lost both contests to the great Alexander Usyk, the greatest heavyweight of our generation. But he's not as bad as Deontay Wilder. I mean, where do I begin with that guy? Tyson Fury had a brick in his gloves. To then the costume was too heavy. To just all sorts of ridiculous nonsense. It's so ridiculous I can't even actually remember all of it, but I do remember him saying the costume being too heavy and him having a brick in his glove. Tyson having a brick in his glove as a reasons to why Wilder lost the rematch. I mean, just completely absurd. So yes, Tyson Fury is delusional. I think he is a very delusional man, but to be fair to him, he's not as bad as Deontay Wilder. So that is my reflection on the whole Fury versus Usyk saga. I hope fight fans listening in worldwide enjoyed listening to my content and hearing my thoughts on the whole saga and what I made of it. I tried to be as honest as I could in this episode, as I try and do in every other episode. If you enjoyed this content, if you enjoyed hearing my views, please don't forget to like and subscribe the podcast. Let's get those downloads in. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one.